And Cynthia, right now I'm showing the time at 11:57.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
That's what I have. I'm going by my phone.
Perfect. Yep, me too.
Okay. One more minute.
Okay, sounds good. Cynthia, I'm showing a time of noon.
Okay.
And just so you know, we had 8 attendees, one of which is on their telephone.
Okay, great. And I see that I see 12. Oh, that maybe is just us and Supervisor Ryan.
Correct. Yes, there are 4 panelists and 8 attendees.
All right, very good. All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Cynthia Nemeth. I am the Parks and Recreation Director for Coconino County. I want to thank you for being here and joining us for this Parks community meeting. We're going to recap a Parks survey that went out. I will say, please be a little patient with us. This is the first time that myself and my colleague, who's behind the scenes, Liz Krug, our department's outreach coordinators with me, joining me. This is the first time we've hosted a virtual public meeting, so please bear with us. We think it's going to go great, but if not, just be a little patient with us, so we will get to you. I'd first like to start off today with introducing and welcoming Mr. or Supervisor Matt Ryan. He would like to share a few words with you, and so I'm going to shut off my video and introduce and welcome Supervisor Matt Ryan. Matt.
All right. All right. Thank you, Cynthia. Oh, let me see if I can. I just got my office set up again, changing everything. First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody that are involved in this for what you're doing. And I hear there are many rumors of what's going on out there. Actually, Cynthia will go on and explain a lot, and some of your community members might be able to help out on that. But, there was some level, spun out of when we were doing the master planning process. Parks and Rec, went around and looked at the rest of the county and said, okay, if you don't have a park in an area, what are your thoughts? What are your recommendations? And thoughts came back to Parks and Rec. Well, also along with that, whether it was triggered by that or just specific community interest, there are younger members in the community that want to see opportunities for their children and wanted to explore the concept. One thing that we did with the master planning process was we can't be all things for all people. And yet sometimes our resources, even though they're limited, we have expertise. Maybe a community wants to do something. Let's provide an opportunity for the community to ask and see if we can help them at least come up with ideas, organize, network, many different versions of it. Another piece that's happening here is, which is pretty neat, it's communities getting together and figuring out what you can do and can't do, or choosing not to. If it doesn't seem to work out the right way, you don't have the right champion. You know, sometimes you tried it, but it didn't work. But I think there's a great opportunity here to have a discussion, have Parks and Rec there to help you out. One thing Parks and Rec did, and we've done before, is we've reached out to Northern Arizona University and Dr. Chuck Hammersley and his Parks and Rec program. When we were in Williams, once upon a time, we were invited in, and actually it was a conflict in that case between the school district and the community. The community wanted more recreational opportunities, and Chuck brought his class through. They created a design, and the group kind of picked and chose from his design different ideas they wanted, but with the community effort, they did fundraising and they went and they reconstructed the playground that was quite dated at the school, and it became a win-win. So there are many different manifestations of what could potentially happen with this, but all in all, this is members of your community that have children and or might want to look at maybe someplace more organized than just going out to the forest, which you have plenty of in the community, and taking a look at it and having our Parks and Rec come together. I know Brian Blue's on this call, and he and Michelle Wesson, some of our Parks and Recreation commissioners, went out to talk to the community with Cynthia Nemeth and staff. It's all good stuff. And we can see, is there an opportunity or not? If not, then so be it. But if there is, sometimes it helps leverage for other broader opportunities. It might be just replacing one piece of playground equipment, or maybe it's something different that the community wants to do. So that's what it is. I don't want to distract us. I know there have been many thoughts on maybe the county's coming to force something. That's not it at all. This is stimulated by the community itself conceptually, and we're seeing, is there a way that we might be able to help? If we can, we'd love to help you out. If you don't want the help, that works too. Okay. So I'll stick on and listen in on what happens here. And often, you know, I've been doing this with many communities and helped a lot of things happen. I can keep an eye out for things, but I'll hang on towards the end of the call and be able to answer questions at that point. I don't want to distract it from the desire of the community for what they want to have happen with this conversation. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Supervisor Ryan. Really appreciate those opening remarks. And Supervisor Ryan did mention your Parks and Recreation Commissioner, Brian Blue. He represents District 3, as well as Michelle Wesson, also a representative of District 3. And just to give you a little feedback there, every district has 2 Parks and Recreation Commissioners that we meet with on a monthly basis. So just know that you do have more representation relative to the topic of Parks and Recreation beyond Supervisor Ryan and myself as your Parks and Recreation Director. All right, so let us begin with our presentation. Oops, well, how does this? Okay, hold on, folks. I didn't realize we would have this complication this early on. My PowerPoint is not advancing. Oh, here we go. I have to click the, okay, got it. All right, so again, just a recap of why we are here today. Supervisor Ryan touched on a lot of this, but in 2019, the Parks and Recreation Department embarked on a master plan, a Parks and Recreation master plan throughout the entire county. And we visited every community between Fredonia and Sedona. And we also visited the community of Parks. We were there twice soliciting input in person. Everyone in the county also had the opportunity to complete a questionnaire and then a statistically valid, randomly selected survey that went out across the entire county. And that all that information that was gathered was then compiled into the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which is on our website and accessible to folks. This summer, Parks community residents who are interested in enhancing some of the amenities that are already existing, park-like amenities that are existing in that community, approach the school and then approach the county Parks and Recreation Department and your Parks and Recreation commissioners. And so we engaged in some initial conversations, and then we realized
So it sounds like Cynthia may have a delay on her end for a second. We'll give her a minute.
Recreation Department, oh goodness.
Hey, Cynthia,
Yeah.
we lost you for about 2 minutes there.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, folks. Again, thank you for your patience. Let's see. I'll just kind of reiterate the fact that we received contact from community members, Parks community members who are interested in examining the possibility of enhancing park amenities within your community. And they reached out to school representatives, they reached out to our department and our Parks and Recreation District 3 commissioners. So then we decided the best way to approach this was to do a community survey. And since we have a great relationship with NAU, we avail ourselves of interns as well as a variety of different projects for the benefit of the department and the benefit of the students' opportunity to learn things about the industry. And so we decided to do a survey, and NAU was gracious. They developed the survey, they collected the data, and they developed a report with the data's the compilation of
So it sounds like Cynthia is having a delay on her end. So we'll give her another minute to come back.
Just to let you know, we are building a cell tower, or somebody else is. They contracted with us and we'll get benefits from it out of Fort Tuthill.
Hello?
But there is a big gap out there.
Am I back?
We can hear you again.
Okay.
And thank you, Supervisor Ryan, for that information about the cell tower. But Cynthia, we can hear you, and you left off about the surveys, survey at NAU.
Yeah, and I am thinking I might be having some internet troubles, so I apologize. I did see a little message pop up. The surveys, the reason for surveys is that we're able to reach a broader audience, a greater representation of a community rather than hosting meetings where perhaps people are not necessarily able to attend. So a survey is a really great way to reach a broad representation of a community, and that's why we felt that that was a valuable tool in this case. And so now, after we have the survey results and the report is out, and hopefully you've had a chance to review it, now we are following up with some public meetings. And we're having this meeting today, and then we're also having a meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m. So you're welcome to attend both. Please share with your neighbors that if they weren't able to be here today, that we welcome them Thursday at 6 p.m. So what is it that we're hoping to do today is to share just briefly, we don't want to get into great detail about the 2019 master plan results. We want to just touch on those, and then we want to touch on some of the highlights of the Parks Community Survey result. We don't want to get into great detail, but I think some of the more salient points we will talk about. And then I'd like to offer what I think is a community-driven recommendation for moving forward. It'll be completely up to this community to decide how they would like to proceed. We certainly do not have the land or the money to build what one might think of as a traditional neighborhood or community park. This is truly about enhancing what you already have and availing yourselves of our help if you so would like it. So just a few housekeeping matters, how this works in this format. Those of you who are able to are on the Zoom platform itself through video, when I'm done with the presentation, I'd like to open it up then for questions. And so there's a raise your hand function, a hand function. So you would use that to signal that you have a question for us. If you are on the phone, you would dial *6. So remember, *6 to unmute yourself so that you can, so that we can hear you and hear your question. And so, and also in the interest of time, please let's try to avoid repeating a question that we've already heard. So that will help us kind of get through, because I'd like to honor the 1 hour that we've given for this meeting. And then also let's, as always, we like to respect each other's opinions. We want to listen actively, listen for those nuances of what people are really meaning here. And then of course, with any public meeting, we want civil discourse as being, up in the forefront of how we move forward. Now, if you're having trouble with internet, here I am, and you're for some reason you're not able to attend this meeting, or you have a question that comes to your mind later, please email us at parksrec@coconino.az. Let me repeat that. Email us at parksrec@coconino.az.gov. Okay. This presentation will be posted on our website, and it is also being recorded on YouTube. And so if your neighbors are not able to attend, or if you want to go back and re-listen, you will be able to do so on YouTube, and it will be posted on our website. All right, so let's just briefly look at this infographic that depicts findings for the parks community from the master plan. So this is from the 2019 master plan. And just as an overview, 84% of those respondents from the parks community are familiar with Coconino County Parks and Recreation. So that's lovely. The greatest benefit that parks community members find in the services that we provide is the fact that we promote health and wellness. And in fact, we do take that very seriously, and we are proud of the fact that that is part of the benefit of what we provide within our department, Parks and Recreation. What is the most commonly used facility that we have? And 77% of you most often use Fort Ty Hill. And then in terms of the past 2 years, what have you used or attended? And in this, we're talking about this middle section here on the left-hand side of the infographic. So overall, the county has attended the county fair. 62% overall of the county attends the county fair. 92% of Parks residents attend the county fair. In terms of facilities that, we have arenas, we have the amphitheater, we have ramadas, those kinds of things. Overall, 61% of the county utilizes those facilities. 77% of Parks residents do. Relative to trails, 56% of the county uses trail systems, and 34%, so that's down, of parks residents do, but it stands to reason. Look where you live, right? I mean, you have access to forest and trails. So, relative to our parks and recreation programs, 17% overall county utilizes our parks and recreation programs, and 8% of your residents do. So, another question that was asked is, what is the greatest barrier for parks residents to utilize our services? And inconvenient location is one of them. When we move over to the top right-hand side of this info graph, that top section there talks about top household activities across the county. Okay, so this is across the county, and community events ranks the top there at 95%, and then hiking and walking, visiting natural and cultural sites, camping, wildlife viewing, and then just general park visitation. So what is the most, but specific to the parks community, the two top priorities for the next 5 to 10 years, and this is very just specific to parks. 50% said playground and playground equipment was the top priority for the next 5 to 10 years. And then trail and trail connectivity, which is something that really we did here across the county. We have great trails, but the connecting trails is something that we heard a lot about, and then trail access. So relative to programming, those who participated in the master plan spoke about community events, hobby and special interest programs, and then natural, cultural, and historical programs being the top 3 priorities for your community. So that's the master plan in a nutshell. Now let's talk about the Parks Community Survey that recently went out. So like we said earlier, you know, the best way to gather a community's opinions is to send out a survey. And we were able to send out surveys to 706 of you, which gave us a really, really good representation of your community. Of those 706 that went out, we had 219 that came back to us. That's a little shy over a 30% response rate, which is deemed to be good. I mean, 50, 100% would be awesome, but that's not ever realistic, at least at the 100 level and 100% level. And so we feel very comfortable and confident that we got a really good representation of this community's sentiment and opinions about parks. And, you know, a lot of it might have been about like a traditional neighborhood park, the vision of a traditional neighborhood park or community park. And so that might have been, I think that's part of what some folks were thinking. But nevertheless, 48% of the parks community residents stated there was no park preference, none whatsoever, of any level. And then another half, I mean, really split down the middle practically, 49.6% wanted some level. I mean, there was a range there. It wasn't like, yes, we're in favor of a park. There was some favor of renovating school facilities, also mixed with maybe just active park features or passive park features. And some were in favor of a combination of active and passive. And just to give you an idea in our industry, what we mean by active, active would be like a gymnasium, a commercial community center where there's just lots going on. A playground could be considered active too, to some degree. Gathering spaces are active. Then when we think about passive, we're thinking about wildlife viewing areas, we're thinking about trails, let's see here, what am I thinking? Playgrounds could also be passive depending on, kind of where they're located and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's how that broke down. So we were seeing, a pretty, an even split. And so, as a Parks and Recreation Director for this county, your Parks and Rec Director, I feel it's important to at least, explore this a little further. And that's why we are helping facilitate this conversation for you. Also on the survey, we saw that 36% felt the best location for a park was the school property. But there were also several comments about, these types of amenities would be appropriate near the school or off of Route 66. There are other comments that stated that, perhaps near the convenience stores where there's, that's kind of the higher activity area for this community. And some of them also mentioned, some private properties, which those could have been. And then of course there was a lot of comments about nowhere near parks, right? So no parks amenities or park-like features or parks in the parks area at all. So we heard that as well. So when we honed in on terms of just the types of potential park amenities, the survey showed in terms of what was very important to those that responded to this question and somewhat important, those are listed here. So for very important, and I'm going through these, I'm reading these off for those that are on the phone because I want to make sure that those that are on the phone can hear this. So for very important was listed bathrooms, walking paths and trails, benches were important, swings, playground type of amenities were important, as well as ramadas and those types of shelters. Somewhat important were listed benches again, bike racks were listed, playing fields, and there was a tie for gathering places, shelters, the ramada type features, and playgrounds. And then a basketball court was also stated as somewhat important. So what I did is I took the Parks Community Survey, the recent survey, and I compared it to things that we heard from this community in the master plan, again, through those public meetings and the questionnaire and the survey. And I wanted to see if there was any correlations. And in fact, we did see that trails and walking paths they were on both. They showed up on both, as well as ramadas. And again, I lumped the gathering places into the ramada shelter category. Playgrounds also stood out on both, as well as ball field and courts. So we see some correlations here, and so I think that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. So the survey also spoke about potential funding options. Okay, so how do you fund? If you're going to improve a community asset, how do we fund it? Well, overwhelmingly, we heard that the majority of residents in parks are not in favor of levying taxes, of using user fees, or collecting user fees for recreational purposes, wait, hold on, let me repeat this, nor the use of nonprofits or volunteer efforts. However, when we look at the, what stood out in the strongly favor and favor section, what did come out on top was nonprofit and volunteerism as a way to enhance existing park amenities. And I would also note at this point that, what was not on that list in the survey was not an option is grants, for example, endowments, donations. Those are also examples of how park projects are funded throughout the country. And so I wanted to make sure that I offered that just as an awareness that, there are other ways to fund, especially lower cost projects. So as far as my observations, or my team's observations, and my recommended next steps, which is going to be, it's a community-driven thing. It's not something that we want to drive from our department, but just to give you an idea of how this could move forward. But let's just focus in on our department's observations. And basically, we feel that there is an opportunity to compromise. We feel there's an opportunity to, without user fees, without increased taxes, to maybe cause some community improvements, to enhance some of the amenities that exist, and maybe add a few low-cost features that kind of meet the needs of those who state that they want some level of park-like amenity, and those who are just not willing to, and understandably not willing to see any increases in user fees or taxes or things like that. So we do see that there are opportunities to enhance. There's a trail on school, and mind you, we only focused on the school property. We did not go out throughout the community and look at other areas, but focusing on the school property, we visited and we saw that the trail, I mean, and with minor improvements, I mean, it's a great little path, it's a great little trail, but maybe with some signage and some minor improvements, maybe there's a little reroute there or a better delineation of where the, the boundaries of the trail. And guess what? We have members on our staff who are experts at trail design and development and have a really good eye for these sort of things, right? The field, I mean, you have such a opportunity there, and from my, professional opinion, the fence is in great shape, the dugouts are in great shape, the bleachers, the foundation of them are in really good shape, and maybe with just changing out the seating. The field itself is the most problematic and probably the most costly endeavor because of the what are they, prairie dogs, I guess, that are out there. So that would be a challenge. Adding picnic tables, not a very costly endeavor. Additional playground could be something that we envision, and we strongly feel that a lot of these improvements could happen with the use of grants. And I would also say we also have the ability to utilize, we have a commission, Parks and Recreation Commission that I mentioned. We also have the Friends of Coconino County Parks and Coconino County Parks, Friends of Coconino County Parks. It's a nonprofit group that works with our department. They help us fundraise, they help us bring together volunteers, they help advocate for parks and recreation matters. So that's also a resource that is available to this community. So anyway, in terms of next steps, I mean, I humbly recommend that you consider forming a volunteer group. A volunteer group that is focused on what improvements could take place, and maybe it's a phased approach. Maybe this is more important or more accessible. This is an easy one versus maybe the more complicated get pushed off or more costly. And then the desired scope. I mean, what I mean by that is think about like the ball field, for example. You have your ball field, but in terms of scope, do you want artificial turf? Do you, would the community benefit from a skinned field, meaning no grass? So those kinds of things. So it would be a group from this community that comes together to, kind of talk about that and come up with a plan and a scope that's reflective of your community, right? And then we're here and we're happy to help assist with providing estimates. So, like, hey, this is what we're thinking. How much do you think this would cost, Parks and Rec? And so we would be able to help provide estimates. We can help research grants. We can help review grants. Our Liz Crew, who's on this call here, she's got a good eye for that, so she can help review grants that you might write and help you strengthen them or whatever the case might be. We can help with the communication, keeping your community informed of any updates, any efforts to this regard. And there may be other ways that we can help, but what we don't have, again, is we don't have land money. But we do feel that we have several resources that we can help yourselves in this arena if you so choose to. So with that, my friends, that's the end of my presentation. We're open now to collect your questions, but I would like for you to, if you feel that this, having a community discussion about what potential amenities could be improved and how can we enhance what we have, if you would be willing to participate in a group like that with the purpose of prioritizing and developing scopes, for what will work in your community, let me know. I mean, we can help, I guess, bring that group together. We can collect people's interests and then bring you guys all together so that you know who you are and how you can, and then if you feel like you want us to help facilitate, we could talk about that as well. So if you are interested in that, you can let us know by emailing parksrec@coconino.az.gov with the preferred way of contacting you. I think it would be great if we had just emails of everybody, and then we can just put you in our group and bring you together that way, if that's the direction you'd like to go. So with that, again, I will open up for any questions that folks might have out there. And again, raise your hand. Use the raise your hand function if you are on the Zoom platform, or hit *6 if you're on telephone.
And hi Cynthia, this is Liz.
Hi, Liz.
So when I see a person who has raised their hand, I could call on them and then unmute them. Okay,
so that's how that works, folks. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and then you become unmuted. That way it's a little organized that way, and everybody has a chance to ask their question. But do we have any questions out there? Okay.
So this is Liz again. I'm going to read a question that Carlos has posted. And the question is, Carlos states, in Parks Place Facebook group, there were overwhelming number of community members who did not receive the survey, me among them. We were told they were sent to same address. We were told they were sent to same address on till used for property tax statement. Well, I received my property tax statement, but not the survey. Is there a need to redo the survey to ensure residents feel like their voices were captured?
Carlos, thank you for that question, and a good question. So how we approach it, well, first of all, let me just say, we feel like we got a really good representation. I mean, we had 606 of you that responded. And while we try to reach as many people as possible, we used the county assessor's list, and they gave us a boundary. It may have not been the full scope and boundary of the entire parks community, or maybe even outlying areas of the parks community. But we do feel that with the number of surveys that were sent out and the number of surveys that were returned, we do feel that we have a pretty good representation of this community's sentiment towards any sort of park improvement. I hope that answers your question, Carlos.
Cynthia, I might add to that one.
Sure,
there.
Please.
And actually, this was conducted by NAU. The questions were created by NAU. They use a certain format, based on their specialty, on the types of questions they ask. But one piece of this is it's a tool. A survey is a tool, just like the survey was done for the master plan. It gives you a general idea of what thoughts are, but it's more coming together with the community in these type of situations to see, what are the opportunities? What would you consider?
Thanks, Matt, for that follow-up. And let's see, I can see this question. Carlos, so you have a follow-up question about delineation between full-time and part-time residents. That's really a good point, and I did not look at that to include in this survey. In this report or presentation. But we can certainly send you the survey if you don't have it accessible, and or we can, email you. Well, we don't have your email address, but if you wanted to email us at parksrec@coconino.az.gov, we'll make sure you get that. But that information should be in the report, the final report that is posted on our website. But that's a good question in terms of full-time versus part-time residents. Thank you, Carlos. Let's see, Carlos again. Was there any way to get to that level of detail segmentation from the survey results? I don't know. I'd have to go back and see. I don't recall all of the questions, Carlos. But again, if everything is in the survey report, you have the letters that were sent out, you have the survey, you have the blank survey, and then you also have all of the responses. So if that does not provide you the answer that you're looking for, Carlos, please let us know. Are there any other questions? Well, folks, we have about 20 minutes, so we're happy to address any questions that you might have.
Or maybe comments on thoughts of where to go.
Comments, thoughts. Any comments regarding creating a community group to further explore what enhancements could be undertaken? Liz, I see
This is Liz. Yeah, yes. Joe Bean has his hand up. Joe, go ahead and ask your question. So Joe, you should be able to ask your question now.
Yeah, can someone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joe.
Oh, perfect, okay. So last evening at the school board meeting, there was a group discussion in putting together some people to discuss the ball field. And the school board is going to try to arrange meetings. It's very, very, I think it's going to be non-formal to start with, to work on trying to get different grants, focusing on the ball field. And that was through Kristen Ironside, which is also a community member.
Okay.
So I'll probably be contacting either Liz or Cynthia if something forms out of that, to add to the group of people interested in forming a group, I guess.
Sounds great,
So
Joe.
it was more of a comment than a question.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we stand ready to help. Like I said, we stand ready to help in any way that we can. Just keep us posted and avail yourselves of our service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And Cheryl has her hand up. And Cheryl, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I was just wondering, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. I was just wondering if are you able to tell me how many people were in attendance for today's meeting?
Sure. This is Liz again. So right now we have 14 people in attendance.
Okay. I'm just wondering because, you know, this conversation is really hot on Facebook, but, you know, I feel like a lot of people aren't attending the meeting. So what are the next steps is there like, can we move forward in a, with a plan, or do we have to wait for the whole community to get buy-in? Or, I mean, what would happen if nobody shows up at these meetings?
Cheryl, that you pose an interesting question, and I mean I feel like we've done. If the people who we're hearing from at these meetings, because this is kind of that follow-up, right?
Yes, and it is.
If we're hearing that there's an interest in at least convening a group of people to further the conversation, then that's the direction we'll move in, and we'll continue to keep. I mean, one thing that we can help with is to continue to keep the information out there.
Right.
If there's a meeting formed, I mean, we can say, hey, we had 2 meetings, and those in attendance just felt like that we should drop the whole thing, or they felt that there seemed to be an interest in some folks to at least create a group to continue the conversation. We can help create that communication, and at least keep people informed and provide them a venue to ask questions, or continue to provide their comments. But this is the second part of the survey is, okay, now let's get together, at least in this forum, unfortunately, but at least let's get together and continue this conversation.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to mute you back. And if anyone else would like to ask a question, please again feel okay. There's another person, DEDGAR, has their hand raised, and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I presume you can hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Well, good. I apologize. I got on just about 5 minutes before the meeting started, and I was anxious to be a part of it. And then I got a phone call that I really had to tend to, so I missed it. So this is going to be repeated 2 nights from now. Is that right?
Correct. It will be a different link, a different Zoom link.
Right.
But yes,
Okay.
we will have this same meeting. Correct.
So I'll catch up then, I guess. I guess the one part of what it sounded like was going to be talked about was where do we go from here? And do you have a plan where to go from here, or is that still being formulated?
Is Dedgar, is that what you go by?
No, my name's David. It's
David, okay. All right.
D. Edgar. Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, D. Edgar, sorry.
You can call me Dedgar if you want. I don't care.
No, we'll stick with David, right?
Okay.
So yeah, the next step is like, let's see what we are hearing. I mean, the part, the value of having this public forum now, after the survey, is for you to tell us really where would you like to go from here. We're proposing, it's just an idea to help facilitate the conversation, David, is to say, we think that you should come up with a group to further this conversation. And if a group, arises that wants to continue this conversation, and it sounds like the school board yesterday spoke about, continuing a conversation about improving the ball field. So that might, be a priority there. And so do others want to maybe be a part of that conversation and help? Maybe we can help bring you into that discussion.
Got it. Well, thank you. And I apologize that I missed most of it. I heard the discussion about that. I think the guy that set this up on the Facebook that I even became aware of it, last name of Bean, I think he, when I did hear his part about what happened in the school board meeting last night. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
You got it, David. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your persistence to get back on.
Yeah.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. And Brian Blue had his hand up, but I don't see him in the attendee list now. He may have stepped off of the call, or so when Brian gets back. Oh, here he is. Excuse me. Brian Blue, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I just wanted to point out that it's really up to the community at this point. If there are members of the community that would like to move forward on any of these ideas, then we need a group from the community and we'll move forward. If the community remains silent, then this dies. So it's really up to the community, and all we're here to do as Parks and Recreation is to facilitate the needs and wants and desires of the community. So the next step is finding interested folks in helping develop these ideas further. And it sounds like the school is is starting to develop a little bit of the idea of the ballpark. So if that comes together, we'll help as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Brian.
We have two hands up. Cheryl first. Go ahead,
So,
Cheryl.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just a follow-up to that. If most of the improvements are occurring on school grounds, does the community really need to be involved, or can the school make the decision about that?
Cheryl, yeah, I guess the school could, but the conversation started with a group of folks that wanted maybe something a little more than what just the school had to offer. Will this conversation maybe spur the school board to, pursue a lot of these ideas? That would be something that the school board would be able to answer.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
may
go
I
ahead.
contribute to that?
Oh,
Sure.
Go ahead, Brian. Yes.
Just, Cheryl, I think the reality is that nobody can do this alone. I think the school board may have some expertise and a little bit of help, maybe even a little bit of money. The county has a little bit of has a lot of expertise, a little bit of help, no money. Maybe grants can do some money. So the answer to your question is no, I don't think the school board can pursue this on their own because they simply don't have the manpower or the money. And that was one of the reasons I think that we were approached. So the school, as far as I know, the school board is very much on board for helping in any way possible, but they can't do it alone, just like Coconino County Parks can't do it alone. I hope that answers your question.
This is Liz. I have her. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to take you on mute, and Eric has his hand up. And go ahead, Eric.
Okay, this is kind of on the same spin that Cheryl and Brian were just on, and I may be in a way asking the same question as Cheryl. This is Eric from the school board that you met last night, by the way.
Hi,
And Brian's correct. So the school board cannot, or the school itself, financially anyway, cannot spearhead this and do it all alone, which is why we're interested in the grants and so on. But with what Brian said, with the community, if the community stays silent, then this dies, I think was the quote. I want to verify and make sure whether this is headed up by the school or major contribution by the school and the school board, or a community as a whole, or as a part, I should say, since we don't have a whole community getting on these meetings and being involved. I want to verify that if this large percentage of the community that is staying silent, because except for when they're on Facebook, as far as meetings and surveys go, the small pieces of the community that are interested in doing this, they can still move forward, correct, Brian? If they are interested in forming a group and doing the work and putting forth the effort?
Eric, I would say absolutely. If there is a group that is willing to continue this conversation, that is how it doesn't die. That is how this effort stays alive.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I don't notice any other hands up at this point.
Anybody else?
I'll probably bubble in here.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. So a piece of this, there are a couple different components that are going on here, but there is some level of interest in the community. It's kind of going to that Margaret Mead quote about, getting a small group of people that usually accomplishes something. I have to paraphrase at this point, but basically, there is an interest among some people. You can't wait for the whole community to come together. You can see in parks, that you have different opinions in your community. But maybe you have a group of people that have a strong interest, and if they come together, you create that impetus, to start your own community initiative, to come up with maybe one solution, maybe more. Other pieces I was referring earlier to when we worked together with Dr. Hammersley's class. It basically was a group of people in Williams that wanted to improve the playground that was falling apart on the school property. It was the middle and elementary school playground that was there. They came together and they actually did a lot of fundraising and got quite a bit of that replaced. The other problem that they had at that playground were prairie dogs. Dr. Hammersley's class came up with a design that they use in parks where prairie dogs are prevalent. And basically it's putting fencing down under the soil a certain depth with more specific criteria on it. But, again, say the school board gets interested and they want to work together with a partner on it. This is a way of saying, well, hey, Parks and Rec, could you reach out to Dr. Hammersley again? Maybe his class can help us. Now, I can't completely commit Dr. Hammersley to it. He's got a class that he's got to keep on schedule with, but these are how things happen. And I understand the Facebook dialogue. Some people don't want change. Or they've been in the community for quite some time and quite content with it, and that's fine. That's an aspect of what's special about parks. But by the same token, there's a group out in your community that's interested in potentially doing something, for a place to gather and or for your children in the community. And what's to stop you from coming together? And if you so choose, you want to do something, we have resources that we could potentially, provide the expertise that you may not have. And it's pretty great opportunity. And reach out to our Parks and Rec Commissioner, Brian Blue, right now. He's a person that, saw the interest that you have with the community, as well as our staff on this kind of thing. This is not the county coming and forcing something on you. No, it's, I saw a quote out there. No, it's not the board of supervisors coming on and mandating that you should do this or should do that. We've heard interest that came from your community, and we have resources, and it's not a tax. That wasn't our concept. It's a typical way that the Parks and Rec program at NAU does an analysis. Well, if you're going to do an analysis on parks, you also have to look at the resources. So they thought it would be good to put in their survey. So that, that might help dispel some of those concerns that were raised associated with that. But you as a community, if this, because it might be a hot issue, you might not feel comfortable talking about it at this meeting, reach out to our Parks and Rec staff and suggest ideas that you feel that might be a safer way that you could have a conversation.
Thank you, Supervisor Ryan. Anybody
Yes, thank you.
else? Does anybody have anything else they'd like to share? We've got 4 minutes left. I've kept this contact information page up. As Supervisor Ryan said, if this is not a forum that you feel comfortable sharing your ideas or your questions, please reach out to us. We got the Parks Rec at coconino.az.gov. Shoot us your question, call us. Yeah, we're happy to address any of your questions or concerns in a different format if this doesn't work for you. So know that that's an option for you. And again, those who are interested in what would be the call to action here, who would be interested in being part of a committee to explore these opportunities, email us at parksrec@coconino.az.gov. We'll make sure that that everybody has the names to convene a group of interested residents. So. Okay, well, seeing no further questions come through, I really just want to thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you for kind of continuing with this process and this conversation. This is how public participation works. We heard from you in survey. We were following up. Now is your opportunity to follow up with your questions and your comments in a more in-person, quote unquote, format. And so thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest in this and being a participant in the conversation. Again, the presentation will be posted on our website. We will also have a link to the YouTube recording of this. So neighbors, or if you want to go back and listen to it, send people that way, or you yourself can go there. And then also know that there'll be another opportunity on Thursday at 6 p.m. and we'll go over this very same presentation. So with that, if there are no further comments or questions, I once again, thank you for being here and taking the time to sharing your time with us today.